Good morning, all. Hope you're all organised. I hope Gary's got that coffee all poured out for us all. And it's great to see you all. It's amazing when we do a project, what's going to happen in it's technology is a great system until we start to use it because every one of us have a different system. The slideshow, which I thought was going to be relatively easy, but I think everything is going to be relatively easy until I find out. It's like any job. It's not until you get stuck into it you realise what the problems are. Yes, a number of people have sent in wonderful slideshows. Some people have gone to a lot of trouble to put the slideshow together, and it shows. It's really good. It's great when you get the sound in. Anyone who had Windows 10 and was able to work with the Microsoft piece of software that was included in the computer, or you could go to the store and get it, seems to have very, very little difficulties in getting it organized. But it's not until we start into these things do we realize that other people have different operating systems and different computers, and they all catch us out. And there are some issues. We don't have problems in computers, we only have issues. And then all the salesmen converted these issues into opportunities and sells us more equipment. But that's beside the point. We've had to change, and the homework hasn't to be in for today, so we let it run and get it in the next week to us, and we'll try and sort out the issues and the problems that developed. There are many ways of doing slideshows, and there's loads of pieces of software out there, and which one is better than one and not better than the other is very hard to know. But Photoshop Elements has it as a part of their setup, which seems to be a good place. I don't have it myself, so I don't know. And I know a couple of people have tried it, and it gets a little bit complicated coming towards the end of it. So I had a look into the Fountain of All Knowledge YouTube, and it seems to be as you go from one edition of Photoshop Elements, like Photoshop Elements 11 is different to 7 and whatever, and there's quite a few tutorials on it, and it's changed over the years. My big difficulty in helping people with Photoshop Elements is that I don't have it myself, and I don't use it that much, only when I'm with Jay, and it's very hard for me to know. We understand the basic principles that these things work on, but then when it doesn't quite work and we've hit the wrong button, it can be quite challenging. So it seems to be Elements seems to be a good place to go to. The other question we have to be asking ourselves as well is, and everything is money, I know, but in photography we want to set ourselves up for success. So we go to the places where we're going to get good photographs. We use the settings that's going to give us a good result. We use the best camera that we can to give us the best results. And we go when the lighting is at its best. That's all set up for success. And when it comes to using our computers, which has become as much a part of this exercise as the actual camera itself, camera has gone down in status in lots of ways. Like a very good phone now is as good as a lot of cameras are, sometimes even better. So it's the software and the equipment that gets used on the back end that starts to become important. And as I've been going through our little Skype groups, I have realized that we all got our equipment maybe 5 or 6 years ago, or a lot of us, and it was perfect when we got it. It was all singing, all dancing, did more than we wanted. We could see no other reason why anything would want to change. And what has happened is the different versions of Photoshop has changed. Our expectation of what we want our computer to do has enormously increased, even in the last 2 months. We expected to go to do YouTube, we expected to do Skype, we expected to do a huge amount of processing in the background. The software keeps on changing, and as it goes from one version to the next, it makes it very difficult for the previous computer to be able to cope with because of compatibility problems. And we say this is a nightmare, and you have to get on the bandwagon at some time. And it is getting easier in some ways, but they keep on moving the goalposts on us. So that's why a lot of us are having difficulties. So how do we get over it? Photoshop Elements does it. The main elements of making a slideshow is that there's the piece of software that makes the slideshow, that decides where the images are going to be, what sequence they're going to be in, what transitions is going to be on them, how long they're going to be on the screen. And that is that part of it, and that's done in the piece of software that I was showing you, or in Photoshop Elements. And then when you have all that done, you create a slideshow. And the slideshow gets created into such a way that you would be able to project it or show it to somebody else, either on Facebook or on Instagram or in WhatsApp or on a TV or. And generally speaking, most of the times it ends up as an MPEG-4 file. And it gets converted. The MPEG-4 has both sound and vision in it. The MP3s only usually have sound. That's where your CD type stuff, if you put them onto a hard drive or whatever and you play it, they're MPEG-3s, whereas the photograph and image is MPEG-4. So that's where you want to get it to. So normally when a slideshow does a slideshow, it leaves the MPEG-4 file somewhere on your hard drive. And that is always a challenge to know where that is. Sometimes I was looking at Photoshop Elements and it gives you a dialog box that pops up and shows it to you. The Photoshop Elements that I was looking at with people, it didn't seem to be as straightforward. There was a button that allowed you to share. And the one that would work best for us there was with an email as an attachment. I could cope with that. That's no problem coming in that way. I could come into the Enoiga email address, or I can come into my email address. I put my email address up on the class group of the Skype, so that anybody wants it, they can have it there and send it directly to me if that doesn't work for them. Now I know Pat sent it to me on WhatsApp, and unfortunately when it comes as a video on WhatsApp, I can look at it, I can see it, but I can't take it out of it and put it somewhere where I can show it back to ye and put it into a slideshow of my own or whatever. So he has sent it again to me on Skype. So there's lots of ways of downloading, and it's just one of those things that's giving difficulty. So those people who are still in trouble, it's a great help when you help one another on the Friends of Enoiga, because I see people putting up a question there like, I can't get this to do or whatever, and very often somebody else will come up with the answer because they have the same sort of equipment as what you have, or talk to somebody else who has a similar type of equipment. Those like Patricia, who are doing it on their iPad, there's within the iPad there are software that will do it. It'll be a different type of show than what I showed you, but that's fine. I like to see that coming in as well. So we look forward to seeing them with all the challenges and the issues that are involved. We will get there, and you will be seeing them. And I'm very impressed with some of the stuff that has come in so far. It is it's really heartening to see the effort that people put in, and I know it's not easy. All these things take time to do. So that is that. The other thing, that as a result of this, you can still send them on to me when you get them done. You're late getting them in now, but we understand there was an issue, so we can work around it. So send it in whenever you get a chance over the next couple of days. So I've had to move a few things around and change things around to facilitate this move, because it didn't quite work out the way I wanted. But that's not the end of the world. So the challenge, the photographic challenge that I was saying to be in for next week, for the end of May, I'm going to push that out into June. So it's going to in June. Now this is an important one, and the reason why I'm giving you so much advance warning, because there's a bit of work involved in this, and I don't want you to say, you only gave me 2 days to do this and we needed more time. It is the challenge that we are talking about, where you take an award-winning photograph. And the theme of it is the new normal is the theme. And I want you to take a photograph, award-winning, with all that you've learned, with all the best possible photograph you could possibly take, like it was going into a competition. and taking into consideration you can put a caption on it, and the caption is important because the caption kind of leads into what it's about. So the caption of the photograph are not terribly important. The photograph is very important, but the caption relates to it as well, so it becomes a part of it. So we're looking for a caption. The theme is the new normal, and the caption and the photograph, and you will send it in to me. I'm not going to say at this stage what way I want it sent, because we are in the process of experimenting with a new, simpler way of doing it. Well, I say it's simpler. Let's see when it works and see what the issues are involved in it. So that will be launched within the next period of time. Etna and I are working on it, and we have it fairly well advanced at this stage. Some people have been helping us with the playing with it to see how it works, and we'll eventually have it all organized so we can get it out there, see how it works, and see what issues and challenges come up with it. So that's also, the photograph is the all important part. And I really don't want anybody saying you weren't given enough of time. It has to be with us by midday on the 1st of June. I originally was calling it the May Challenge, so you can just call it the challenge now at this stage. And we're looking forward to all the new work involved in that. So the other things of interest for you is that we have been, a lot of you in our little groups we have been setting up bookmarkers to get to our website, the Anoiga Photographic Group's website, which is coming along slowly. There's still a lot of work to be done on it. It's not by any means perfect yet. But Etna and I have done a little improvement on it, and if you would like to go and have a look at what we have done, you go into the website and you go into the competition page. We just put it on the competition page because that's where we were playing. And Etna was talking about getting the idea of social media to come up. So we've got two little logos in there, one for YouTube and one for Instagram. All right, the YouTube one will bring you directly to where you are now at present looking at me, hopefully. And the other little logo, the Instagram, will bring you to the Anoiga Photographic Group's Instagram page, right, which we have been working on since 2008. And there's a couple of people involved on it, and the link brings you directly to it. When you get to it, you can go to our if you can get our Instagram in your own right. Etna and I have put, well, Etna found it, I didn't actually see it, put a link in on it that will bring you straight to the website. So there's a whole load of links going backwards and forwards and whatever all over the place. So go and have a play with it, and me talking about it will drive you all mad until you actually go and have a look at it and play with it. That's the one we are playing with at present. And the whole idea of bookmarkers, putting them up as well. So most people have got their head around bookmarkers now at this stage. If you don't and you'd like me to do a little video about it in a live stream or as an extra video, just put it in the comments of this live stream, or put it on What Friends of Anoiga, and I will put it together, because I think it's a lovely idea, the whole idea of bookmarkers, and to be able to find stuff quickly. So let's get on to today, and we're going into a new world, and this one could prove to be challenging. I know it's another one of those like the ISO one. There's a couple of these we have to go through, and it is really great when you go and do it yourself and you go and send me in the images of it. Whether they are right or wrong doesn't matter. The fact that you go to your camera and press all the buttons and find these things, and then tell us the names that other people put on it, because different nerds call these things by different names. So if you find it on your camera in a different place, just write it down for us, and we will put it up for the next one that you didn't find it there, you found it somewhere else, because they have a tendency to put it in all different sorts of places. So let's have a look at what our project is for next Monday, to be in by Monday lunchtime for the live stream on Tuesday. Okay. This one is all going to be about resolution. Okay. Now, this is where it gets really confusing, because there are so many names put on that. I've only one name up here on the up on the screen, picture quality. By the time you've all your homework sent in, hopefully you will have given me another couple of words to put up there. That might relate to what we are talking about, because, as I say, every nerd, every camera has a tendency to call it by a different name. And I think the basic line is keep it as high as it goes, right? Old story, better to be looking at it than looking for it, okay? So where do you find these sort of things? Well, in actual fact, you may have seen this before, because this will look like we are doing aspect ratio, because it's a first cousin of it. And sometimes on camera settings, they are linked together. They're in the same part of the menu, linked together. And on a phone, we always start with the phone and the tablet. You may have seen this before. And it's got ratios here, 4:3, 16:9, and 1:1, right? But if you notice, the important thing about the resolution is that one is 8 megapixels. That's 6 megapixels. That's 3 and that's 2.4, right? That's the important bits. They're the bits we're looking for. For this exercise, don't worry about the aspect ratio, right? That's not just coming into the equation at this stage, right? So you have one there that will give you an 8 megapixel resolution. And this is sometimes it's written that way. That is a kind of a first cousin of it, because that's the way it fits in on this condition. But it will not nearly always give it you the number of pixels by the number of pixels. There's 3,264 pixels across the top of the camera on the sensor, and there's 2,448 going down in use. Right? So when you come down to 6 megapixels, look, it's less. It's the same going across, but it's less going down. When you come down here to 3.1 megapixels, look at the way it comes down to 2,000 from 3,000. So when you go to do this as a homework job, I don't expect you to do every one of them. All I'm looking for is a different megapixel ones, the 8, the 6, and the 3, and the 2.4, right? Just because that's just playing around with it for different ratios within the system. But that's not what we are talking about at present. It is there, yes, I don't doubt that for 1 second, but it's not what we are trying to get. It might just slightly confuse you. Right, so camera resolution. The amount of detail that the camera can capture is called the resolution and is measured in pixels. The more pixels a camera has, the more detail can be captured, and the larger pictures can be without blurring or grainy. Some professional cameras support up to 16 mega or 20 megapixels. That's because I created this slide for a class that I was doing many years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and 20 megapixels has nearly become standard. It would just, in the past, like 4 or 5 megapixels was, it just shows you the world keeps on going forward. But anyway, the basic thing remains the same. All right. So you have the sensor in at the back of the camera, right? That takes all the information. It used to be film, and there used to be different sorts of film and we call that ISO, which is first cousin of this as well, but that's not what we are talking about now. We're talking about how many pixels there are. And this is from somebody else's slide that I've taken, and it's from the past. And it says if your camera has a 2 megapixel camera or a 5 megapixel. Now, that's what the old dinosaur phones used to be. We've all gone much higher above that now at present. But it gives you, if your sensor is a 2 megapixel, it will do 1,600 pixels across by 1,200 up. And then as it goes up, those figures go up, and we get up to 5 megapixels, is whatever. Now we will be laughing at 5 megapixels. We will be saying, God, you're an awful dinosaur. This goes way, way, way up. The camera that I'm going to show you that I use here, the small little compact camera, it goes up to 20 megapixels. But it's just showing you the idea as how it comes up. So a megapixel, right, is so if you have a photograph of a group where there's a lot of detail into it. So if you just take one portion of that out and enlarge it up, you see the way you see the pixelation. But when you look at it from a distance, it looks much better. It's like when you look at a billboard in a distance and you say, oh God, there's great detail in that, until you get right up beside it and you suddenly realize it's all made up out of dots. So it's not quite dots in photographs, kind of little squares, and they're called pixels. So you can see the effect there of what happens. Now, what has all this got to do with? A little bit like when we were talking about aspect ratios for printing, image size becomes important for printing as well. All right. So if you have a 2 megapixel camera, or your camera is set to 2 megapixels, you could have a 20 megapixel camera and you might have it only set to 2 megapixels. So that's a big challenge, and this is the reason why I'm getting you to do this. Once you do this once at the beginning and you have it set to the highest, you know where you stand. If you want to print, you need 300 pixels every inch available to you for printing. Otherwise, it just doesn't print well for you. If you are working with something that is on a TV screen or on a website or whatever, that drops to 72 or 100 sometimes, but about 72. So there's a huge difference. So the images that you need for a TV screen and where we're operating here now are much smaller than what you need for printing. So if you only have a 2 megapixel camera, you can really only print 5x4s off that. If you have a 12 megapixel camera, you should be able to do 13x8. All right. So that's where the image size comes in, and it becomes a reason why you would want to bother with it. Okay. This famous photograph that we've been looking at a couple of times. Let's have a look at this one. And we look at the file information on this one. Okay. And if you look at the file information on it, it is 3264 pixels by 1836. If you multiply that by that, you will get probably whatever. And that is the number of megapixels, right? It may be 3.7 megapixels. Now we'll have to get out the calculator and do it. Because there are issues here as well. Sometimes the figure that's up there is the number, it is the total number of pixels that's in. Somebody's got a calculator out there and they have it done now. But sometimes that is the compressed value for it, because there's two different things going on there. Anyway, basic point is 326 by whatever. All these other things of exposure, whatever, becomes immaterial at this stage. That's the number of pixels that's in that photograph. That's the important thing about this one. If you take a little portion of it there, that little bit there, and if you were to crop that, okay, that's what you get. Okay, I just brought it up a little bit bigger for you to see it. Okay, so that's what it looks like when it crops in. It's not as good as the overall because it's brought a little bit bigger. If we move on to the next one and go in closer and have a closer look at it, see the way it's really, that's the previous photograph just enlarged up a little bit bigger in Photoshop. Look at how it's starting to follow. Look at these lines starting to give trouble here. Look at pixels, and if you go in even further into the end of it, look what happens. Pixelation is starting to happen on you, right? It's starting to show. You often see this happening when somebody robs an image off a website, and they're the white van man or the white van person, and they are out there and they want a photograph to put up on their van, and they go to the internet and they rob a photograph from the internet and they bring it into the printer and they print it and put it up on the screen up on their van. And when you go to print, you need 300 pixels per inch, and there's only 72 in this, and they're also very, very small, so that's why it doesn't often see that on vans and it's all falling asunder. It also happens if you try to crop in too tight on an image. So that's what happens if you create an image that is 1 inch square and you have 10 pixels per inch. So that's 10 up and 10 down, so you can't quite see it. So I've made this into a 10 by 10 pixel image. You can't see it, it's tiny. I did it in Photoshop, right? So I have to bring it a bit bigger for you to see it. Okay, that's when I bring it bigger for you. So there's only 10 pixels by 10 pixels, look. So there's very little detail within that. You can't figure out what it was. It was some bit of that stick that we were looking at. Okay, so there's 10 by 10. So that's 10 by 10 in pixel size. Okay, Bring that down. Smaller maybe. Oh. Right then. This is a set of photographs that I took for a course. Oh, it must be 4 or 5 more years ago, right? And it was with a small little compact camera, right? And this was the camera set at 7 megapixels. Right, that was what the camera was set at. I stuck it out the door, stuck it down the street, and took the photograph because I was trying to get it organised for a night course that I was doing in Mountjoy Street. Now you can see that in this case it says the size of the file is 2.9 megapixels, but it was shot at 7 megapixels. This is what I was getting confused with earlier on when I was showing you the picture. It doesn't say 7 there. That's because it's a JPEG image. That's because it's compressed. Okay? But it was originally 7 mega, and that's where this here comes from. So, 7 megapixels, when it gets compressed, becomes 1897 kilobytes. When I was doing it on that occasion. But in actual fact, you can see it here. It's 2.9. It's just has interpreted differently in the way it worked on this shot. But anyway, that's what that is supposed to represent when it gets brought down size. This number here is a little giveaway for you, right? And when you set your camera to 7 megapixels, on this particular camera with the memory card I had in it, I could take 230 photographs on the remaining amount of card that was there. Right, the pixel size was 3972, same as here, and 234. I didn't have this when I was doing this in the last course, so it's catching me out. The more you check up on yourself, the more you find, oh, that doesn't quite tally. So we'll have to use a little bit of imagination, but in this case, it's not too far from it, right? So that's quite a big image. That's as big as that particular small little compact camera can give. Quality is not absolutely brilliant compared to, it must be 15 years old or at least 10 to 15 years old, this camera now at this stage. But I took that for size sign there, and I enlarged it up and put it here in the corner of the photograph so that you can see, you can still read what it says over there. That premises is still for sale to this day, so it hasn't sold over that period of time. Anyway, that's what it looks like. So you can see, you get away with it. It's as good as you can possibly have, right? And they're all the technicality of the numbers that go with it. I hope I haven't glossed over people's eyes at this stage and gone over their heads. If you're finding it difficult, just stay with it. It just gives you an overview of it. You can always go back to the YouTube up to this video and have a look at it again. Or it takes quite a few attempts at getting your head around this to understand what all this resolution is about. So the next one I took was with the camera set at 5 megapixels. Right? And look, now I can take 327 pictures with the remaining one. Very often this figure comes up on it, whereas on the other one I could only take 230. So now 327 gone up. The pixel size has changed and has gone down. The size that it gets down to as a JPEG file is smaller. It's not quite saying the same here, but that's what I read it to be when I checked it on that occasion. But now look at what's happening to the sign that's over here when you enlarge that and bring it up. Still read it, but not as good. You can say to yourself, I'd get away with that or not. Okay, so that's that one. So then let's go to the next one. This is down to 3 megapixels, right? And now you can take 327 more images on the remaining amount of memory that's left on the card. The pixel size has become smaller. This has become much smaller. Which is 1.4, yeah, it's near enough, right? And now look at what is happening to the sign over here. You don't have the number of pixels to be able to see that up at that size. This is only a relative idea for you. You can't quite see the pixels, but because there's not enough pixels in there, that's the reason why it's giving you the issue there. And this next one is taken at 1 megapixel. right? Now you can take 1,815 more images on it, on the camera. Who'd want 1 megapixel photographs would be just about good enough to put them up on a website, and you weren't going to crop them or do anything to them. Get loads onto it. So that's where you would use it for websites, and that type of would be used. But as I always say, you can make the image in the camera at the big size. You can downsize it in Photoshop or in something else afterwards. So look at how this is falling asunder, right? On this particular camera, it put this setting in VGA, right, which was tiny, 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 which will allow you to take 5,000 photographs. But look at the pixel size. Look at the size it brings itself down to. 10, 15 years ago, it was important to have small images because we didn't have broadband width and we didn't have those sort of things. We needed to have it nice and small in size and pixel size so we could send it by internet. But look at the way the sign falls asunder. All right. Now the next couple on it, I did it because they were on the camera. It's just playing around with when it goes into different ratios. It doesn't really apply. It's the same difference as all the other ones. It's just a different way of interpreting it, and that is also the same idea. You don't have to worry about it. So now the next thing is, how does this affect you? And where are you going to find it on your camera? I told you where to find it on your phone, and it exists on phones and on tablets. So if you go to your camera and you come to the menu and you go looking for it, every camera has it by a different name and is put in a different way, and I find it utterly frustrating. So I'm hoping that if you find a different way for it, you take a photograph with your phone of the back of your camera showing these settings because it's good for you, and also send it to me and I can put it into this show to show other people how other people's camera looked like. And it's also a great idea to take a photograph with your own, with the phone of the back of your camera if you're using a setting that you're not used to using. Or you say, I wonder where that was. Will I be able to find it again? So if you have a photograph of it, it's a great way of doing it. I regularly use the phone for this. If I see something on YouTube that I think is really interesting, I'll stop the YouTube and I will take a photograph of the screen with my phone. And I also, as you see, have taken photographs of the camera with the back to show you what comes up on it. Anyway, this is this particular camera, and it has image size is what it's called. It's called L for large, is what's meant here. 17M is 17 megapixels. So when you go into that part of the menu, it will have a whole load of other different sizes in there. Aspect ratio sometimes has the image size as a part of it. Right, quality is not resolution. It's a different thing, but sometimes the resolution is put in with the quality. All right, and then they have all these other bits and pieces on other cameras. So that's the main basic bits that are on that one. Oh, I gotta go smaller. That's an example of a small image that we have brought up bigger. Right, this is from Davy Mullins, who you all know, is one of his slides, and he did this quite a few years ago, and I think it's a great image to explain it. You have, sometimes it's called image quality, sometimes image size, and there's a difference. Image size is what we're talking about. We're talking about 5 megapixels, 3 megapixels, 2, PC, TV, they just had fancy names put on them, but there were other versions of megapixels. But these things here are the only important thing. If you set it to there, the camera will shoot at maximum resolution every time. Once it doesn't change anywhere. Once you put it there, it stays there, right? And but then at the same time as setting the image size, you have a choice of 3 different levels of image quality: fine, normal, and basic. And fine is obviously the best, right? I was talking to Moira, and we were talking, she was talking about getting images to me in her system, and she was thinking of making them smaller. And when you produce a JPEG file in Photoshop, you have a choice of its quality of 10 or 12 right down to 1. That's what this image quality is, but it's what they call it in the camera. So, and obviously if you put it into fine, you have a smaller image, but then you don't have the quality. And the idea of trying to squash things on cameras now are a thing of the past, because memory, micro SD cards are not expensive to put in. Big cards aren't expensive. Buying an external passport drive now for a 1 terabyte passport drive to put your stuff on is only maybe 60 or 70 euro. That would be 700 or 800 euro, maybe more, not so long ago. So memory, and the cloud is not too expensive either. On this other camera, it's called image mode. Look at the way they quote to confuse us, but it's basically the same. It's got 12 megapixels, 12. That's what you're looking for. They have the PC in there. 3 meg is the smallest, and you see by the way the it is set. So you have to find that on your camera. If you can't find it on your camera, go put image quality, image size, image resolution into Photoshop, followed by the make into YouTube, and put the make of your camera in, and it will bring you directly to it, because that will have been there somewhere before. Now this is on the little camera that we have, a small little compact camera, and it took me forever to find where it was. I couldn't figure out where it was, where the picture size settings were. And it was a button. It wasn't in the menu at all. It was a button on the back of the camera I had to press. It's normally 99% of the times in menu. And you've seen this slide before. This is an example where I took the phone and took a photograph of the back of the screen. Now I can remember where it is. In this case, it's called picture settings. But if you notice, it has aspect ratio tied in with the picture size. All right. Picture size, image quality are all potential names that it could be called, depending on what the nerd decided to call it. And you see the way they do it in different ratios, right? So you've got 4:3, 3:2, 16:9, and 1:1. It doesn't matter which, for what we're talking about, for to do this resolution exercise and the homework that will go with it, you don't have to do them all. Just do it in one ratio. Because all I'm looking for is different, this one up here, how many megapixels the camera is set to, right? So it gives you large, medium, and small in this case, right? So you hit it on whichever one of these and it gives it to you. If you hit it there on the large one, it says it's 3:2. That's just, by the way, that just happens to be the ratio it's working in. It is a large image it's going to produce. That's what L usually means, and it is 20 megapixels. It doesn't give you the number of pixels by pixels in this case, but it does give you this magic number out here, which is a real guide. 559 images can be taken on what remains of the card that is in the camera, what remains of the memory that's in it, right? So that's where that setting is at that stage, right? But they never make things simple for you. So let's say, for argument's sake, we had hit this one here, the medium one. It would have been 3:2 again. 10 megapixels, only half the amount of size, but look at, you could now take 1,000 pictures on the remaining amount. So that in itself, if you don't understand any of this, and this all goes above your head, the less number of photographs you can take on your card, the bigger the image is going to be, right? And it's a way of realizing where you're going. It's an extra little hint to help you along the way. So we go on to now. This camera did not make it easy for us. It then had this little, I'll bring it back and I show it to you. On this screen here, it had this fella. This camera is a touchscreen camera, as well as button pressing, and which cameras were very, very late getting into touchscreen, but this one is touchscreen. So if you hit this fella here, and this logo will give you an idea. If you go into that one, it brings up this screen. This is the one we have pressed, and this is the magic word quality. All right. Know the way we were talking about fine. These are the symbols that normally go with it. The resolution has been taken care of. Now you have to tell the camera what way you want it to save the file. Right? So do you want it fine, that's a good quality one, or not so fine? Fine, giveaway 558 will go on there. If you did that one, it will give you more. Right? That figure is the number of images that will go into it. But this gets a little bit more sophisticated. So that's just straightforward. If it's the straightforward one that you have 3:2 large, and you could put it to fine, that will get you into that spot. On the settings on that camera, your camera will be different, of course. Couldn't be any other way. Now, this is the one that a lot of people have been talking to me about. So if you're not too advanced, close your ears and say, take a rest, because this is for the advanced people when they're talking about RAW. On this particular camera, and on your cameras, you may find RAW as well. And if you do find a RAW, take a RAW image. Now, you might not be able to go too far with it because it has a lot of work to do with it. But like, if there is one on your camera, just shoot one in RAW and have a look at what it looks like. Okay? And if not, it doesn't matter. It's only for the advanced people. So in this case, it will let you choose a RAW one. So this is, if you put your finger there, it will give you a RAW image plus a large fine image, JPEG image, both saved beside one another on the camera. But it doesn't put too many photographs onto it because you're using up a lot more space. And then you go RAW with not as compressed. Why it would be compressed, I don't know. And then straightforward, where you normally use RAW would be just pure RAW. Oh, so that's just pure RAW. Okay, that's it. Have I got you utterly confused and bewildered at this stage? I would say so. I would say I have you completely and utterly confused. And we have been here for an hour. Could you believe you? I hope that coffee hasn't gone off on you, Gary. Hopefully Pat is with us. Pat O'Leary. We don't know if we're getting to you or not, Pat, but it comes here every Tuesday and Thursday. Hopefully we have you. If you get in touch with us, we'll tell you other ways of getting in touch with us. Anybody else who has just joined us, this is open to anybody. Tell your friends about it, and they can come along. Right? Now, the last thing I want to just show you is that if you have images, right, and you want to know about the information to go with that image, right? So let's say you're in the view mode and you have it as extra large icons, right? If you put your cursor over the image, it will give you a lot of information. It will give you the dimensions. That's the pixel size of it, and the size of the file. All right, that's the compressed size of the file. Okay, and this is one I was playing with earlier, and it's the same size. This is smaller, look, and this one is a bigger, smaller one. All right, so that's one way of finding out information about it. The other way you can find out information about it is by right-clicking on it and come down to Properties and have a look at Properties, and it will tell you the size of image that it is, and it will also give you in details the dimensions of the pixels, and it tells what the camera was taken in, and all this other information here, the ISO, and if it had been exposure. We were there the other day, but I'm just showing it to you again so that you see where all that information is. It's called metadata, and because these were taken on my phone, right, if I open them in the same piece of software as we were looking at it in a few minutes ago, those of you who are on the holiday in Portugal, not the last one, but the one before that, I think that's at Sagres down. Other people were also in Sagres, but this year's people were in a different part of Sagres, but that was down at the village. And anyway, that's the photograph that was taken there. Now, if you go into the file information on this one, because it's come off the phone, it will give you all this information and it will build. But Mr. Google will also show you where the photograph was taken. So sometimes when I am taking photographs with camera, I will also take a photograph with phone, so that I can have and I'm trying to wonder where I put it. Mr. Google can tell me where it was. So that's another little one. You know, there's so much going on in the back of these images that we don't really get our heads around. So there's that's those issues, challenges. You know, it's challenging for you all. It's all bits and pieces. So What do I want you to do? Put it in one sentence. Oh, but yeah, that's okay. But at least she's putting up a live comment, which oh, Etna put it up first. Okay, she probably contacted Etna through it. So it's great to see what you've got using the live comments on the chat. Some people may not be able to do it yet. We'll work on that. And so to summarize what's required of you, the photographic challenge is for the 1st of June to have it to me by 12 o'clock. The method by which you're going to send it to me is not decided yet. It is yet to be decided. It's going to be experimental in a different sort of a way if we can get it to work. If not, it will default to the old system. When you are putting the file name on it, it will be the older system that we've been using, or the normal system. It starts with your name and it gets followed by your caption. It goes into the file name. There will be other little twists and turns to it as well, but that's the basic bit that we're experimenting, well, which you know about, right? That's the way it's going to go in. It has to be the best photograph you've ever taken. And it has to have all the elements that we've been talking about in composition, in brightness, in darkness, because all those things will be looked at when we have a look at the image. Not expecting miracles, but do it as good as you can, make it as good as you can for your own sake, right? And that's one thing you have to do. For the next live stream, which is next Tuesday, next Monday, we would like to see the homework coming in the normal way on Skype to me. And I'm looking for an image taken. I would like you to take something like the one I had taken, where there's a sign in the background, where there's writing. Because when you take the photograph at different resolutions and you zoom into that writing, you will see how the pixelation makes a huge difference, the number of pixels that you use. So take one of each one of the megapixels that's available on your camera. When you are finished, set it back to the best one. All right, I should have said that, shouldn't I, when I had given the exercise of exposure compensation. When finished, put it back to 0, right? When you do this one as well. If you do it on a tripod, it makes it easier for yourself, because you can just look at the screen and press them one after the next. And then when you go to zoom into the center, it will always be into something that you can see detail in it. Writing is a great one, like the one that I put in. So that's the story. Thank you all very much for your patience. I am very thankful for all the people who put in the effort, because without you putting in your little bits and pieces of homework, if you cheat or whatever, that's okay. But let's get something in, because it gives us something to talk about. And get those slideshows in, because they are really impressive. How you're going to show them out to you, I'm working on it as well. Those of you who get a chance, go and have a look at the Instagram link that we put in on the Anoiga Photographic Group's website, which has that funny domain name to it. It also lives on Class in Skype. There's a link to it there. Lots of places where there are links to it. It's called Photogala at the end, so it's because it's a freebie. It'll eventually have a decent domain name there. And go and have a look at the Instagram there, and have a look at the images. And any of you who have Instagram in your own right, use the hashtag AnoigaPhoto to find the photographs that we have put up. And Etna has put up some sample photographs into our Instagram Anoiga page, I presume they call it. We have a lot of learning to do there. We're only at the beginning. So that's the place to go now, where we're learning, and make some mistakes in it so that we can realize that we've made a mistake. Okay, take care, Slán, and we look forward to seeing you again in the next live stream on Tuesday. Take care. Bye.